State University's WIT, Women in Technology event, as well as a UNC System faculty learning community event. We're so pleased you are here. It's Friday afternoon. This is going to be a great hour together. We're going to hear from our panelists, and as you have questions, please feel free to add them into the Q&A. You'll see at the bottom of your Zoom window a little button that says Q&A. Add them there, and we hope that we'll have time at the end to get to as many of those questions and comments as possible. Bethany and Carrie are both here to help troubleshoot any issues, to assist with the Q&A. We are recording this session for those who wanted to participate but couldn't attend at this time so that they can watch it later. So that's all for the general introductions. I want to get us started by meeting our amazing panel. First up, we have Krista Glazewski, and I said it wrong even after I tried it. Glazewski. Krista is the Executive Director of the Friday Institute and Associate Dean for Translational Research at the College of Education here at NC State University. Then we also have Anna Maria Echeverri. She is the Global Head of Business Development, CCI, AI Services at Amazon Web Services. And we are so glad you are here this afternoon because AI, it is all around us, and it has been so for a while in ways that maybe many people didn't notice or care much about before. However, as we all know, with the explosion of generative AI in the last, 14, 15 months, the conversations around AI have felt very different. And so what we want to talk about today is the impact. And so I'm going to start off by asking you the big question. What do you see as the positive, and what do you see as the negative impacts that this new generation of AI is bringing to the workplace? And Krista, let's start with you.
Sure. So I work at the Friday Institute, and if you're not familiar, we are housed at NC State University. We exist as the translational research arm in education for NC State University. We are called the Friday Institute in honor of Bill and Ida Friday, so we're endowed in beloved UNC Chancellor and his wife, and not for the day that we have today. But to respond to your question, I think mostly about teaching and learning in K-12 context and K-12 settings. And I think it's important to recognize exactly what you were saying at the start of this year. We've been living with AI in our context for at least 30 years, driven kind of initially by adaptive testing, learning analytics. Now today, the thinking about AI, the generative capacities of AI. We're, really closely connected to trying to envision a classroom of tomorrow, but trying to see that happen today. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we could think about artificial intelligence as a partner, and a thinking partner and an administrative partner for teachers, to be able to supply both guidance and information in a way more rapidly than we could imagine. And I think as a thinking or collaborative partner with students, when we try to look to see innovative problem-solving practices take hold and uptake in the classroom, I think we care a lot about how AI could be used to support student learning and collaboration. So I'll stop there. I know other people are going to have thoughts as well, but those are some initial thoughts.
Great, Krista. Thanks for starting us off. And actually, we have had our third panelist join us. Phaedra Boinodiris is here. Phaedra is the IBM Consulting's global leader for trustworthy AI and the author of AI for the Rest of Us. So I won't put you on the spot right now, Phaedra. I'm going to turn it over now to Anna Maria to answer our big opening question is about the positive and negative impacts of AI. Anna Maria.
Yes, and let me do what Krista did and give you a little bit of background on my areas of expertise. So I'm actually a graduate from NC State from the Master of Science in Analytics. After about 20 years in the world of high tech, I decided to go back to school. This was year 2011. Best decision of my life, because that's how I redirected or refocused my career, first in the space of data science and machine learning, and then focus on artificial intelligence for over 10 years now. Worked for IBM for about 7 years, where Phaedra and I worked closely in multiple areas. And I joined AWS about 1.5 years ago. So most of the work that I've done, it's focused on how enterprises are adopting AI and how AI is impacting their employees and customer experiences. So for me, one of the big benefits of the new generation of AI is the fact that it has become accessible by everyone. So I think within a period of literally like a couple of months, we went from a world where AI was very much centered in a smaller group of people with highly specialized skills. And all of a sudden, every single person in the world could see the power of AI. That, of course, comes with significant downside.
Yes.
Because while most people are being exposed to AI, they actually don't understand the fundamentals of how these systems work. So, there's this assumption that there is it's like a magic thing where you can communicate with this entity and it's actually sentient and it thinks by itself and it makes decisions by itself. So I do think the risks come from that aspect of people not understanding that really once you lift the covers, what you have is a probabilistic engine that in the case of, when you're working with some certain data is predicting, let's say, a specific events or a specific things of what's going to happen next. And when it comes to the whole, conversation around large language models and what everyone's seeing now, which is extremely powerful, I think it's, every person needs to know that this is a probabilistic engine thinking, these are the next best words. That's very critical because then two things happen. And I see at one end, the people that think, oh, this system was trained and they assume it's trained in the same way that we train people, which is it's actually learning and it's applying logic and making these important decisions. So that's one end, thinking that it's absolutely perfect. But there's also the other end that is like, oh, wait, this is horrible. It's making wrong, decisions. It's telling me things that are not true. And what that means is, well, that's inherent of a probabilistic engine. There's always going to be a certain percentage of things that are not precise, that are not correct. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that you have to add additional layers, as Phaedra, I'm sure, will address, because the whole field of trustworthy AI is what do we do? How do we manage? What are the safeguards that we put in place? What are the risk management issues that I need to consider, given that it's a very powerful technology, but that is not precise. It's not telling you, 1 + 1 = 2. It's telling you something with a certain degree of confidence. So great benefit, everyone sees it, can use it. Great downside is that the skills have not kept up, especially when it comes to the general population, to understand what it is that they're conversing with when they're using a bot, for example.
Great, thank you, Ana Maria. Phaedra, would you like to weigh in on what you think are the positive and negative impacts of AI in the workplace?
Well, what a deep and heady subject to tackle on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
I gotta say, and I'm so pleased to be on a panel with Ana. I mean, I haven't seen you in what feels like 10 years. You haven't changed a bit. So that's always fun. And I love to see familiar faces here. So what an interesting time to be working in the space of artificial intelligence. I mean, this is absolutely so fascinating. A day does not go by that doesn't feel utterly jaw-dropping. And it's so fascinating because as AI is becoming yet more prolific, it's so important for us to be able to think about trust and like, what does it take to actually earn our trust, even just looking at things like videos. And I'm sure you've seen the news come out about Sora and using generative AI to generate these extremely realistic videos. Just last week, I think it was like late Friday, CNN came out with a news report about a tabletop simulation that was being done through the US Department of Defense and a number of the federal government agencies via the Biden administration to do a simulation of what would happen if the Chinese were to publish an AI generated video showing a senator destroying ballots. And like, what would happen? And like, you know, a few days later, you see Sora coming out with like, you know, showing the woolly mammoth sort of plodding through the snow. And it has become so incredibly realistic. And it does really offer us the important opportunity to ask the questions about what is it going to take to earn trust now? How do we know what to trust? It's never been more important to have these kinds of conversations. And earnestly, the whole subject of trust isn't strictly a technical challenge. It's something that is socio-technical. And anytime you talk about something that is socio-technical, it really, really requires a holistic approach, meaning you've got to be thinking and talking about what is the appropriate organizational culture required to curate AI responsibly? What are the right AI governance processes and the right tools and AI engineering frameworks? And I'm certain you all here can guess of those three, which one is the most challenging. It's the people. It's always the people, right?
The people.
And it's because, I mean, today there is a teeny tiny homogeneous group of human beings determining what data sets to use to train these models with. So when thinking about organizational culture, absolutely DE&I has to be top of the list. Absolutely, we've got to have more representative voices determining what data sets to use to train our models. And we need the people developing these models and the systems of governance around these models to be multidisciplinary in nature, right? Because the effort to develop AI isn't 100% coding. Most of the effort is determining what data set is correct, what data actually represents all these diverse communities which we need to serve, which data was gathered with consent. Is this even the right data to use this, solve this problem? So having people who are trained in design, sociology, anthropology, psychology, who understand disparate impact. I mean, these are the kinds of voices we really need working on AI with us today.
Phaedra, I saw in your book that you really want this push toward people who have AI literacy, right? Humans who are literate in AI systems. And that's so important as so many new things are come out every single day. It's exhausting trying to keep up. And I think this goes to Anna Maria's point too about not understanding what AI is, and that it's just this probabilistic engine, and that knowing that and understanding that, I think, can help improve how people interact with AI. So that leads me to my next question for you is, you know,
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Build up on this conversation. I actually feel like we've reached the time to redefine what literacy means. I think throughout the world, we've talked about, you know, basic reading skills, basic arithmetic skills. And I do think we're long overdue for adding AI as a significant component of literacy. This is not going anywhere. This is not a fad. This is not something that's going to disappear. It's actually going to become more pervasive. And we need the world to be prepared for that, even with just the basics.
Yeah,
and
great.
In fact, one of your cohort members here, Ishita, who's a member of your audience, She is working with us to bring the topic of AI into civics class.
Mhm.
Why are we just teaching it in computer science classes? Like, that's great that we have a mandate across the state of North Carolina to teach it in comp sci classes in high schools, but it really belongs in civics class. So again, per what Anna is saying, like, yes, we need to redefine literacy because, again, it is a multidisciplinary effort, right? Again, if we keep it in this framing of it is for people who self-categorize as coders, machine learning scientists, computer scientists, we are completely missing the boat.
Mhm. And it's almost like AI would have benefited from being born in its own place versus as a technology development motion. Because I think what happens is people see, oh, new technology, I'll just do the same thing that I've been doing, you know, when the internet was born or when mobile applications were born. And all of a sudden, I think that's what organizations face, which is, wait, you know, we're trying to do the same thing we've always done and something's missing. And that something is the fact that this is a multidisciplinary field, that this is a probabilistic, not a deterministic field. So it's no longer I code, I deploy, it's running. You actually have to put, you know, processes in place to measure what's happening after, you know, like and depending on the use case, the considerations may be more or less serious, right? Like I always like to use a very silly example of, let's say that I have an AI system that's baking cakes, right? And, you know, 1 out of 9 cakes, 9 out of 10 times it's okay, but 1, it fails. Well, what does failure mean? Well, you know, in some cases, as the pie looks a little ugly, okay, that's not too bad. But there are some cases where it actually burns down the kitchen. So that's the part that I think organizations are usually not prepared to think through because they're used to, it's just a technology motion. We'll just, you know, code, put something together, deploy. And there's so much more. Like that's just the beginning because you really have to analyze what is the use case? What is the impact of those decisions, especially when those decisions are automated? Is it impacting different groups of the population in different ways? So there's so much more that I do. And I don't think it's intentional that organizations are not looking at that. They just don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. Krista, do you want to weigh in a little bit about data literacy from the education standpoint?
Yeah, so there's a few projects that I'll point to that are interesting points in their trajectories given where we are in this conversation. In 2019, I was working with a team of researchers at Indiana University and here at NC State University. I was at Indiana University at the time. I was collaborating with James Lester, who's kind of known as the NC State AI guy in many ways here at NC State University, and a few other folks. And we proposed to the NSF for one of their solicitations that we were going to launched the primary AI project. And this project was to teach kids in grades 3 through 5 about artificial intelligence and what it was, and let them peek under the hood and give them insight into what it is, how it could be used. And we started by outlining that we would teach kids computer vision, AI planning, and machine learning, and sprinkle in a little NLP in the process as well. And you could not imagine a more disparate set of reviews from the review panel about even proposing this idea that some people thought it was like going to be critically important for kids' futures, and other people thought that it was preposterous. Like, why would kids, elementary school kids, need to know about artificial intelligence, and what would like that we were so arrogant for having assumed this. And what was going on politically, I think at the time, was that the NSF had a sense of urgency because China was making was leaps and bounds ahead of the United States with regard to their AI education frameworks and approaches. There were 2 published textbooks that had just come out for elementary and secondary students, and the US was feeling like we were falling behind, and so there was this urgency, and it happened that our project hit at a moment of urgency. Now, I don't study artificial intelligence. I've been a classroom teacher. I study how kids problem solve and how problem solving pedagogies can be leveraged to support complex problem solving in the classroom. So I was coming at this from, there's a lot of interesting problem solving we could do in a context like this. And if we empowered kids with knowledge and understanding, then they could go places. So we're now 4 years into this project. We're about to sunset it. But what I'll point to is some of the outcomes that we've seen so far. I have a lot of confidence that these kids, these 4th and 5th graders, know more than most entering undergraduate students about computer vision, machine learning, about how models are built, and about how, again, letting them peek under the hood, letting them work with these ideas. They know what an AI planning problem is and what constitutes the components of an AI planning problem. I mean, I have so much confidence in this, and the results bear it out. What we couldn't anticipate then that we now see are all these off-the-shelf tools and resources for teaching kids about AI literacies. Machine learning for kids didn't exist in the way that it does now, and there's a lot of off-the-shelf stuff that can be put into practice and kind of plugged in. But what it speaks to is the power of being able to both prepare kids for a world that even we can't imagine the world that we're preparing them for, but we're empowering them with some technical capacities and an ability to reason around data ethics and representation and algorithmic justice in some ways. But also the fact that there's a lot of interest in this, that the kids really kind of naturally want to use AI to solve interesting problems. And then the final thing I'll say is, like now there's a bunch of off-the-shelf tools and resources. If we had the ability to ask great questions of what these are, I think we could really see exciting things happen in the classroom as well. So I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. So all of you have brought up such great topics here, and we could spend the rest of the afternoon talking about each one of them. I want to dig into this idea of trustworthiness or AI responsible use. We hear these words, we have ethics, we have trustworthy, we have responsible. Can we talk a little bit about how we can really influence how AI systems can be used and created responsibly? Who'd like to start off?
I'm happy to talk about that. Ultimately, what this all means is we're trying to have our very human values be reflected in our technology. we expect our technology to not lie to us. We expect it to not discriminate. We expect it to be safe for us and for our children to use. Sometimes people, when they talk about responsible AI, they also include things like the environmental impact. We expect it to not suck up a ton of our resources. And what's happening is more and more organizations are establishing or publishing principles, right, to guide practitioners on the expectations that, AI models have to be fair. Fairness is a principle of ours, or explainability, making sure that when you've got an AI model that's determining some kind of an output, that you're able to know what kind of data was used in order to make this determination, what kind of methodology, right? The challenge has been not on how do we come up with what are the principles we need to publish, but how to operationalize that. Like, what do you actually, what needs to happen in terms of functional and non-functional requirements for those systems? And I would say, like, the environments around those systems in order to make that model fair or equitable or ... right? And this is where the part about it's a socio-technical challenge comes in. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I'm working similar to you, Krista, with education. I've got a project right now where there's a recognition that skills assessment in grade school is inequitable. NAEP has published about this, other different organizations, and there's an effort underway by the state of California to use AI to make skills assessments more equitable. And so right now I'm a part of a think tank where we're coming together to determine, okay, you know, given specific kinds of use cases for how you're going to use AI models to assess skills, what are the kinds of principles that might be important for us to look at? What are the risks associated with using an AI model to determine how well someone comprehends a block of text? Then given those risks, what are the rights of the students? What are the rights of the parents? What are the rights of the teachers? How would you mitigate for the risks? What are the features and functions? Blah, 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 getting down to it. And I'm telling you, the hard part of all of that is not technology. It is literally having people with different lived world experiences in the room with you. So you can say, hey, there might be a neurodiverse student who's having a conversation with an AI agent that is, you know, trying to assess their ability to read this block of text. But guess what? This child who is on the spectrum doesn't feel like taking this assessment right now. If kindness is a principle of yours, one of the questions you could ask is, do you feel like doing this right now? Mm-hmm. If you don't, let's do it another time. Or what if the student says, I'm feeling suicidal today? What are the expectations that you have as an organization for how that AI model is going to react in that situation? That's why I'm saying the words that I'm saying regarding really, we need far more different kinds of brains working on this now. People who do have backgrounds in design, psychology, sociology, anthropology, behavioral design, law, philosophy, right? I put a link to a YouTube video from the London Interdisciplinary School. It's absolutely excellent. And it asks the really great question of, when you have an AI generator that generates images, what is our expectation as a society when we ask questions like, show me an image of a typical CEO? Is our expectation that half of those images should be women? Even though today not half of CEOs are women, what is our expectation? Like, these are the kinds of questions we have to, again, start asking.
And I'll add to that from a different angle, because I work mostly with enterprises adopting AI. And so within that context, we talk a lot about governance, and governance of AI, and putting, principles and processes and people, and so that this can be addressed. And a lot of times I see that organizations tend to look at that more as alignment with regulations. So all the governance, it's meant to protect the organization from doing something illegal or doing something unethical. But I do think there's something that is very potentially even more important than that, and it's those governance boards should be looking at how they put humans at the center. Because for all of this, we need humans. And that's one thing that I notice when I'm talking to someone and they're like, oh, I want to do AI because I want to get rid of all the employees in this team and I'm going to replace it with them. And I'm like, I'm completely like, that's the wrong conversation. First of all, that's not the goal. Like, if that's the goal, you're looking at things the wrong way and not fully optimizing for what AI brings to the table and what humans bring to the table. So it's really important to think about what is the role that humans are playing every step of the way. And that includes looking at, how data is being evaluated. Are we looking at whether the data itself has biases, which most data will have biases because they're just reflecting what's happening in the real world. Then, looking at your models, are your models predicting in a biased way? When do you put humans in the loop so that, let's say there's a wrong output, the users can say, hey, something didn't work here. But once you get there and understand that humans should be involved every step of the way, this is not about replacing humans, then you're left with which humans, right? Because then it can't be your default humans from the perspective of the same type of people that we've been hiring for the past 50 years. So you really then have to incorporate which type of diversity you have on your teams, because if not, then there's only one lens that's being considered. And so the more diversity that you have on this team, the more they'll be able to think. You have to think ahead of about the different possible scenarios. And if every person that's sitting at the table looks the same way and acts the same way and has the same background, you won't be able to anticipate the potential scenarios. So this goes, in enterprise, it starts with governance, regulations, and it's like, oh, wait, we need humans. And then it's like, okay, those humans, you really need to be intentional about how you're building your teams, so that diversity of thought, diversity of experiences is included into the mix.
That's great. Thank you. Krista, do you want to add anything about responsible governance?
Yeah, I would just expand a little bit on humans in the loop that Anna touched on, and I would really just kind of impress the importance of a way that we can think about organizing work or life so that our work and administration gets supported and informed by AI. Some of the most powerful examples that I've seen are being able to take information that's in an environment and making it actionable. I work a lot with teachers in the loop, and I care a lot about teachers or tutors and how their work might be supported by AI. So we, if we take ourselves out of this idea that we're, student work has been transformed, they're all out there cheating, which the research does not bear out that they're all out there cheating. And we ask a different question, which is, kind of where are the potential areas of empowerment here? I get really excited about all the ways that AI can do so many things so much better than what humans can do. We cannot collect data and analytics about our learning environments at a speed or a rate or a pace that artificial intelligence can. And so that there's a way that our AI models or AI-driven systems can empower teacher decision-making, can give them views and analytics about a learning environment, and can empower them to take specific kinds of action. There's a way that, there's a few different examples out there of AI empowering tutors. And so that, just by offering different examples and so the AI is a support for the tutor to be able to work one-on-one with a learner. And those examples really excite me too, because at that intersection of human AI partnership or capability, we can ask so many more questions about our work environment, our life environment, our home environment, and we can start to see some real benefits, and once they get equally shared and equally experienced for everyone.
Just a quick add-on, since we're talking about governance, actually a couple of things I want to mention is we need to ask the question of who in organizations is accountable. Who is accountable for equitable outcomes from AI? And then the next question to ask is, does that person or that group actually have a funded mandate with enough power to do that work? Do they have enough power to shut down projects? Do they have enough money to do the work of governance?
Yeah.
Seriously. And then with us, all the rest of us, we the people, right? We need to get into the habit of asking those questions, like who's accountable for this model? Mm-hmm. Look at the link I just put talking about healthcare life sciences, because I had seen before I wrote that blog a number of YouTube videos going around talking about using a large language model to do curbside consults for physicians, right? And in these YouTube video links, it was all on LinkedIn too, like there was not one comment asking the question about accountability or risk or like audits, not one. We have to be better about asking these questions, like how much better does this model perform compared to a human being? Who's accountable for it? What was it audited for? How often is it audited? You know, where's the fact sheet? Where's the metadata? This is what we have to get into the habit of asking. And that's why we're saying, like, we've got to bring this earlier and earlier on into kids' academic careers.
And that's how it connects to literacy, right? Because I do think, because in the context of AI, we talk about training models. People just make the assumption that it's training like we train humans, right? And it's like, oh, this thing learned and they're ready to go. I can ask it if I need surgery, or I can ask it what medicine to take. And I think only when you understand what that means, you know, what this system is telling you is something that may be wrong, and with supporting an expert, that expert may use something that a system provides and say, oh, I had not thought of that. Let me research it and then see if that might work, versus it telling me that I need to take this medication and, well, I have no idea. I'll just go take it, and, you know, without understanding if that's going to work or not. So I think it's so critical in the context of societies in general to build out this foundational knowledge of artificial intelligence and how to use it to support what you do, you know, being in your personal life or in your work lives or in your academic life. And then for organizations, really that need for increasing AI maturity so that they can fully build the processes and frameworks around these very important questions. Because I think right now, everyone's doing sort of the best that they can with what they have at a ridiculous speed, because technology is changing every second, and everyone feels like, if I don't do this now, you know, my company is gonna disappear. And I think there's still such a long way to go in terms of taking the learnings across the board that we are all experiencing and putting that into some sort of roadmap that helps an organization make the right decisions and put the right safeguards in place to fully leverage the great benefits that this technology has, right? Also, don't get us wrong. I mean, we're not saying this is like going to end the world and AI tomorrow is going to wake up and is going to kill us all. What we're saying is it's extremely powerful, but you have to understand what it is, and you have to understand that it's not just a piece of technology, but there's a whole thing that is much bigger than the piece of technology that you build that is required in order to be successful and to fully take the benefits of AI in any scenario.
I think that the really interesting idea too is about that accountability. And if you're familiar with the AI incident database, which is literally just collecting all these stories, and like what Phaedra put in the link there for those of you who have not ever looked at it before, it's worth perusing and seeing all of the reports of how AI has caused harm. And it does come back to who is accountable for that. How do we process through that? So that's going to be an interesting discussion. When I've been hearing you talk about the skills that are needed, so obviously data literacy, we've hit on that a lot today, and understanding where the human fits in the loop, right? That we're not just turning over all of these jobs. What other skills do you think are going to be essential for workplace, for research, for education, or just for navigating the world that has generative AI all around us?
I think
I'm sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
This is where I think the humanities can shine again.
Yay!
Yay! Exactly. I know Donna's clapping. In truth, because what is critical is for people who have an understanding, not only of the things that I described earlier, like, psychology, sociology, blah, 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 but also history, the history of inequity and disparate impact. Because today, imagine this, there are people who are developing AI models to determine what percentage interest rates people should get on their home loans who have never heard of the word redlining before.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know it. And it's not that people are evil or people are nefarious. Mm-hmm. What's happening is they say when they're going to college, I want to be a machine learning scientist. And the deans of their school are saying, you don't need to take those history classes. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what's happening. They just don't know because they were told it's not important, right? When in fact, it is important. There are people who are saying things to me, and these are, well-educated people who are saying things like, how could my AI model possibly be unfair if I'm not gathering any PII? And I say, wait a minute. You can't think of a single time in human history where a group of people were treated unfairly unless you had their PII. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like there's this weird disconnect, which is why I'm saying, like, yes, on humanities. And I truly think there is going to be a wonderful new dawn for librarians. This is what I want for librarians. I want librarians to be the AI sentries. I want librarians to be able to be the ones determining which are trusted sources of data to use to train our models, and to be able to have the tools to curate those ontologies so we understand the context and meaning of words and ideas. That's what I would want. I really would want to see. So being able to teach the space of AI in this holistic way, I think is going to be really key.
That's great. I think you made a lot of people happy with what you just said, Phaedra. So.
I'll add us a group. I'm not going to say less important than people in the humanities because I may offend another group. But I do think there's another group that it's very important that has been given over the past few months a tremendous power, and is developers. Mm-hmm. So I think when we were building machine learning models, and those of us building them were people that were fully trained in understanding the biases in the data and the biases in the models, etc. So it was part of our thought process as we were training a machine learning model. But usually that level of power in the technology was pretty much centered in the data scientist machine learning personas. But I think with the generative AI sort of Pandora's box being opened with so many APIs where you don't have to train your models, you can get a lot of power using a pre-trained model. This group of people, I think, also require a whole new set of skills that are not related to calling an API so that I can have a conversation with a bot. It's important to, and again, it's that thing of, because we used to do it this way, I just go learn the new tool, go do it. I do think is reminding people that AI is not just about technology. You're a developer, now you've been given access to tremendous power by calling APIs, but you need to understand what using that API means. And you need to understand how you think ahead of potential issues, and then how you measure everything that's happening afterwards and determining, is it working? Which areas is it potentially bringing in additional biases and additional challenges? So I do think you need to, very importantly, go more granular in what AI skills is, because it's not monolithic. It's not like, oh, I just take this course and I know AI. It really depends. Yes, there's a foundational layer that I do think every single individual in the world should have. But once it goes into, let's say, your day-to-day job, there's going to be different sets of skills that you need related to what your job entails working with AI.
Great. Krista, do you have anything to add to those essential skills?
I would add that we are talking about accountability, and we're talking about, you know, how we kind of ensure trustworthiness, but and we really want to place focus on developers. And I think then a central question connected to that does become, well, what are going to be some of the guardrails that really need to be into place? And really, honestly, where do we need to have government intervention? Like, we are not, we are people that can influence, in a small way, our organizations and who our organizations touch. But I do think that there is room for, accountability to really, and that conversation really needs to be had. I think the AI Bill of Rights is a good step in the direction of really helping people to understand what their own rights are. And at the same time, I think that more needs to be done in really looking at accountability from a lot of different perspectives, and then to really think through, like, well, what is the responsibility of organizations, and what's the burden that they should be really assuming if they're going to put products out into the world. Like, we have been talking about these very real examples, but we also need to take seriously the examples that cause harm, and not just think that it's someone else's responsibility to worry about policing and surveillance in their neighborhoods and in other people's neighborhoods, right? Like, we all own responsibility for society, and we all should be asking, for more to be done, that to ensure that these benefits get felt by some, not that benefits get felt by everyone, and that the harms and the risks do not inequitably fall on some groups and not others.
That's such a great point. Thank you for sharing that. It is hard to believe we are 10 minutes left in our time today. How is that possible? And we do have one question in the Q&A, and now's the time. If anyone is thinking about they wanted to pop a question in, go ahead and do that. But let's address the question. It says, do you feel that AI outputs should be evaluated and tested by humans before moving forward with major decisions?
I personally think that they should, but it's in practicality, it is probably virtually impossible to do it. So I think you first have to determine what the use cases are. And for some use cases, again, like maybe I'm showing some ads automatically. The impact, if I show you a blue shoe instead of a green shoe, may not, change your world. But if I'm, providing, let's say, we saw it when Gen AI first blew up, with some organizations providing mental health recommendations using generative AI with no humans involved. So I think the first step is you've got to look at what the use cases are and the impact. You've got to look at what you programmatically can do to detect those issues, and absolutely determine what the thresholds are to ensure that you're bringing in humans in the loop to do that. And simple example for that we in some cases do, and this is not, again, a use case where people will die, but for example, in contact centers, when you call the contact center and you're talking to an agent, the agent at the end of that conversation will, before Gen AI, would sit down and maybe write an email to you saying, this is what we discussed and this is what's going to happen next. Well, now we have the capability of doing that with Gen AI, but we don't have that incorporated in a completely automated way. And it's simple. It's an email. It's not going to kill anyone. But the way we implement this is the agent can generate the email, but they'll get to read it and make changes and ensure that there's nothing wrong before it gets sent out. So there's multiple ways to put some mechanisms in place to evaluate what the answers are.
Great, thank you. We got another question here. It says, Krista touched on this issue a bit. I'd like to hear more about AI and equity. While generative AI is widely available, there are members of our community who have less access, i.e. can't afford paid AI tools, and some who have no access, no computing device in their home or no internet access. So how will AI potentially widen the digital divide, and what can we do at this moment as AI is emerging and evolving to address that divide? It's a big question.
Well, I think that there's a lot of things to be paying attention to. I think that we should be looking for some legislation and some government intervention for regulation. Like I think that regulation is a lot of people are allergic to it as an idea and as a word, especially in Silicon Valley. But the fact is, these big effects are happening, and people are being harmed. And so I think that there's a way to really ask for that level of accountability. And then I think there's a way that, yeah, part of this is an education issue. And then, yeah, part of it is an infrastructure issue. These are complex societal problems. We need our humanities folks now more than ever, because those are the frameworks that enable us to ask critical questions about ourselves and the world that we're working toward, and all of our responsibility in working toward that world together, jointly, collaboratively. I often think of this when I think about driving home, because now that I live in Raleigh, I have a commute, and I often think about the ways in which people think of a commute and traffic as a competitive exercise or a collaborative one. And you can see the drivers that think of driving as competitive and collaborative. You can see them. They're a binary group, but in any given day, you might be one or the other. But I think that we can also think of ourselves as like accountable to ourselves for driving collaboratively toward the future that we're trying to make real for ourselves and inhabit.
That was a great example. Go ahead, Phaedra.
If anyone cuts me off on the highway, I'm just like, okay, maybe their water just broke and they have to run to the hospital.
Yeah.
Just send good juju.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it. I don't see any other Q&As in there, so I'd like to always end a panel discussion with this question of, what question didn't I ask you that you wish I had, and you want to give me your 1 or 2 sentences about it? Do you want to start, Krista?
Well, the question that I always am prepared to ask in a panel like this is, what's the problem that keeps me up at night? And that's the problem that keeps me up at night is the ways in which we have potential to create new digital divides that we haven't even thought of, because we are humans who reinscribe these practices over and over and over again in our history. So the ways in which we, yes, agree 100%. We need our librarians more. We need our humanities folks more. We need so many more minds in the rooms than we've ever had before.
Great, thank you. Anna, how about you?
So I actually get asked this question a lot, and is interested in AI, how do I get started? And I do think a lot of people come to that question from the technical angle, you know, like, how do I get started building or training models or deploying models? But I always, independently of where they come from, I always say you have to start with the very, very basics. And fortunately, we live in a world today where there's so many good sources of education that are free and that you can audit. Every single technology vendor has courses. I posted a link here from something that was done in Finland very successfully by the University of Helsinki. It's up there. It's called Elements of AI. It's a great little course that teaches people the very, very basics of what AI is. So always think in terms of what is it that you want to do with AI, right? Like, do you want to just understand it? Always start with the basics, or do you want to build models, in which cases you will need machine learning skills and a whole set of skills? Or do you just want to, let's say, use some of the available APIs and use that? Someone from the humanities side, you know, is like, think about what are the potential issues that you would see once you understand the basics of AI from your world, and bring them forward. Because I do feel AI is not new, right? This field was created in the 50s, so long time ago. It's still emerging. There's not a clear roadmap for anything that we're doing. Everything is being done as we navigate the progress of these technologies. So I do think it's important for everyone to raise the voices so that we're collecting all this collective IP and building something that can be more scalable and repeatable towards the future.
Wonderful. Phaedra, take us home. What's your thing you like to talk about?
Well, I frequently get asked, I care about what you're saying, but I don't feel like I have power.
Oh,
I have no power. What do I do? I care about AI ethics. So what you can do right now, irrespective of what your role is or even skill set, help us fight for more inclusive and accessible education on the subject of AI, as we all three of us have been sort of preaching on today. Right? Help us get this course in a much more multidisciplinary setting. Help us get it into classes like civics classes so that it can be taught in an appropriate and far more inclusive way than it has been to date.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Krista, Anna, Phaedra. We are so glad you were here today. This has been our Women in Technology panel, as well as a FLC Generative AI Teaching and Learning panel. Thank you for everyone who spent your Friday afternoon with us. It is now 3 o'clock. Have a great weekend and be safe out there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I want to talk about so much more, but it was so fantastic. Thank you.
I know, so
Thank
good.
you, everyone.
Could have gone another hour.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Sarah and everybody. Have a great weekend.
fantastic. Bye, everyone.